discussed our efforts in broadband. Unfortunately, as I think probably everyone knows, the bug tussle decision, although it looked like the great and the best solution at the time, didn't pan out. And I'll let Jeannie explain a few more of the details in her presentation. But we severed that partnership. Then we went back out with a request for proposal from various vendors, a second go-round. And we think tonight we're going to give you some pretty good news. Some very favorable options came back from the vendor we've chosen. The services that they're going to offer the community are every bit as good or better than anything that's out there, and from a reliable company. And we think it's a very good, less costly alternative for broadband for our entire community. So with that, I'm going to introduce Jean Vogel, who's the chair of our Communications and Technology, and she'll take you through the presentation. And there'll be plenty of time for questions. All right? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Wolfel. And thank you all for being here. I wanted to see all the chairs full, but, you know, hopefully you'll spread the word, right? So your presence is appreciated. So I'd like to start by thanking and acknowledging the committee, Paul Casriel, Paul Wickman, and Derek Demise. And thank you to County Board Supervisor Hugh Zettel and to County Broadband Coordinator Jess Hatch for their guidance and assistance throughout this process. So Laddie, are you going to put that up on the screen for me?
Up there now.
There you go. So the agenda for tonight. I will share information on our broadband expansion journey, the committee process, the internet service provider selection criteria, the ISP recommendation, parcel owner return on investment, the next steps, and then we'll have the Q&A. So if you have any questions, please reserve those questions for the question and answer time. And also the people that are watching on YouTube, if you want to send any questions, do it via your chat function. So, our broadband expansion journey 2023. As Dan said, many of you were here in January for the public hearing when I announced the committee's recommendation to partner with Bug Tussle. Things changed. The town experienced challenges getting answers to questions and follow through on project matters. We held meetings with Bug Tussle senior management with no resolution to the issues. Because of these issues, the town decided in June, to end the partnership with Bug Tussle. Though the outcome was disappointing, we resolved to find a solution. Communications Technology Committee process, round 2. So in June, the updated request for proposal was sent to AT&T, Bertram, Charter Spectrum, Frontier, and Ensight. All 5 of the ISPs responded to the RFP and were evaluated and scored. And so tonight we gather for a public hearing. On September 14th, the committee will review the feedback from this public hearing, and a formal recommendation will be made to the town board at the September 18th meeting for board action. The good news, there was more interest in RFP round 2 with competitive responses. ISP selection criteria. The committee focused on the 4 questions on the screen. Coverage for the entire town, coast to coast. Overall project cost, including competitive subscription rates. Technology that was future-proof, including design, buried versus aerial mix. We wanted a partner that was capable and with experience to serve our entire community. The top 3 ISP candidates. AT&T, Charter Spectrum, and Bertram were our top 3 candidates. 3 checks is the top score. These internet service providers were evaluated and scored for providing coverage for the entire town, minimizing overall project cost and maximizing return on investment. They were also scored on the type of technology to achieve a future-proof solution and as a valuable partner. As you can see, AT&T received the most marks on every level. Assessment of AT&T. Coverage. AT&T will provide coverage for the entire town, including town facilities. Return on investment. AT&T offers a favorable overall project cost of $7.42 million and will be a strong partner with a 70% contribution of $5.19 million. Future-proof. With XGS-PON fiber to the premises and optimal deployment on existing infrastructure. As a valuable partner, with their expertise of design, as well as having existing wireline cellular presence in Door County and fiber deployment in areas of the town. What's the offering? What's the AT&T offering for residents? AT&T offers symmetrical speeds of 300 megabits per second for $60 a month, $55 with auto pay, with additional levels up to 1 gigabit per second. Eligible residents that participate in the Affordable Connectivity Program will receive 100 megabits per second symmetrical speeds for just $30 per month. The first 1,000 feet of fiber distribution at the road to the home is free. There is no charge for gateway modem and installation. AT&T Active Armor Security is also provided at no charge to fiber customers. AT&T provides additional programs, educational programs that will help manage the digital transformation. The chart on the right of the screen are examples of the savings that could be realized by switching to AT&T with a possible annual savings of $60 to $780 depending on your current provider rates. Project cost and tax levy impact. Parcel owner return on investment. Typically, when towns look at borrowing, they use the Wisconsin Board of Commissioners of Public Lands, where the interest is that we pay goes back into the Wisconsin Public Schools, which I think is a real nice thing. If there's going to be interest, where else better place to go? Sevastopol used Wisconsin Board of Commissioners of Public Lands when we financed this very town hall. Interest rates are typically competitive with a term of 20 years. Right now the rate is 5.75%. The town's annual loan payment would be approximately $185,600. I will use 3 examples from the chart to share the effect of a tax levy. With a parcel valued at $100,000, the annual tax levy would be $16.10 or $1.34 per month. A parcel valued at $200,000, the annual tax levy would be $32.20 or $2.68 per month. A $700,000 valued property's annual tax levy would be $112.69 or $9.39 per month. By switching to AT&T, for most property owners, the average payback will be 2 months. We hope to secure grants to make that payback even better. Next steps. On Thursday, September 14th, the committee will meet to review feedback from this meeting. Discussions with AT&T will continue on potential contract framework and cost savings opportunities. We begin the grant process, actually starting tomorrow with a grant writing webinar. So on Monday, September 18th at the town board meeting, AT&T will be recommended as the town's broadband partner for board action. If you haven't participated in the broadband survey, please visit fibernetdoorcounty.org and click on Door County Broadband Survey. If you don't have internet, please call the number on the screen, 608-267-3595. Thank you for your attention. I tried to keep it brief, so we have plenty of time for questions. So we'll also have the chat. So if you wish to ask a question, I'd like you to please raise your hand, and then you should be able to go ahead and speak, and it shouldn't be a problem to pick up the sound. So,
Jeannie, if they could state their name.
yes,
too,
and
so I
please
could
state
get
your name,
that.
sorry. There must be someone, yes. Yes,
Jeannie Keith Muchler,
Uh-huh.
6451 Whitefish Bay Road. I might have missed it. Is there any projected construction or installation schedule that you're looking at?
well, upon the contract, when we bring the contract together, they say they will start right after that. And then about 24-month build-out, yeah. Denise,
What other
would you state your name?
Oh, I'm sorry, Denise Shenbear, 5283 South Lake Road. What other municipalities are using AT&T? Do you know?
Though, I'm aware that town of Egg Harbor has actually chosen them, yes.
Okay, okay.
And,
And AT&T is, sorry,
yeah, here,
sorry.
you,
Hi, I'm Hugh Zell. I'm the county board member that represents the eastern half of Sevastopol. My other partner in crime on the county board is Dale Vogel, who has the west side of the town, and he's also been a great advocate. I also chair the broadband committee, so I have a little bit of inside baseball knowledge of this. Is from the county board. AT&T is also a provider in the city of Sturgeon Bay, longtime provider, so they have fiber there. And I think the other thing that we, I guess, take comfort in to some extent is that AT&T has started to creep up on the southwest side of the town of Sevastopol. So by Cherry Hills Golf Course, we've seen some customers choose AT&T fiber, and we've gotten some nice, interesting benchmarks of actual speeds. You know, when they say 300 and the resident says, yeah, I got 380 down and 370 some up. So it's like, okay, that's pretty symmetrical. So I think that, and we're able to compare that with other offerings that are within the area. So we take comfort in that. And then the other part that Jeannie had on the slide is, you know, AT&T provides cellular service in a county. AT&T is a partner with a county as part of our Next Gen E911 effort. They are also the FirstNet provider, which provides cellular service to first responders, and they are the national provider for that. So they have towers throughout the county. So if there was a big disaster, first responders who have that service are guaranteed to get cellular coverage. When you think of disasters and nobody can get on a cell phone, well, this FirstNet network allows them to get through. So they have that throughout the county and actually throughout the state. So they're a well-entrenched, if you will, provider in the county, so that's very helpful for us.
In the last go-round, you were making some assumptions about the adoption rate throughout the town. I think because you weren't going to levy a tax.
Correct.
So that's probably no longer relevant to their pricing.
Correct.
So-
And I think there's a couple things that when you look at the payback, if you will, or from a return on investment for the parcel owners, is they are providing 70% of that project cost. And so that's in line with what the town of Egg Harbor is getting in their proposed project from AT&T. It's also what our friends to the north and east in town of Jacksonport with Frontier did a 70-30, and I think that kind of set the bar, quite honestly, in the county. When you look at ISP participation, I think this 70-30 is the best of any of the ISPs that we've seen in the county, so that is very helpful for us. The other part that helps us a lot is the realized value. Our equalized value went up It was $991 million, and it's now $1.152 billion for the county. So that property value, that helps, if you will, get that, lower the cost per $1,000 of equalized value of your parcel. So that's why it's, you know, a monthly tax levy of only about $1.34. I mean, you can't get a latte at Starbucks for that, right? I mean, so it's and when you look at it on a monthly subscription rate perspective, it really puts it into context compared to what a lot of our residents have today for service.
So neither their contribution nor the monthly rate are based on any assumptions about how many people in the town
No,
sign up for it?
correct,
Okay.
correct.
Correct, there's no holdback.
Okay.
Correct, yeah, there's no risk, and that was something
That
that
was
was,
huge.
that was huge for us
Yeah.
not to have to worry about that. So it's, yeah, once we get the number finalized for the number of locations, and that's based on what the FCC says we have for eligible locations, we'll finalize that.
That's for
over
federal
the-
grants.
For federal
purposes,
grants.
yeah.
That'll help us make sure we're accurate relative to how many will be part and subject to the tax levy. And that's a process we're working with Jessica Hatch, who's our
Yeah, Jess is right there.
our county broadband coordinator extraordinaire.
Yes.
That's going to help us out quite a bit on that one.
This is yours.
Fine, sorry.
Yeah, Tom.
Tom Dubnicka, 4681 Windermere Drive. Could you talk a little bit more about the grant process, and if a grant is awarded, does that reduce both parties' costs? How does that grant
No,
get
any-
applied to the cost?
Okay, thank you. Any grant that we would get, you know, fingers crossed, we're gonna do our best to do that, would come off our portion, the town's portion. It would not come off what AT&T is contributing.
Okay, and then I know you did that before, you sent an application, I guess, into the state before or something, the last
Well, that was
go-around?
through
Does that
the
have to be?
PSC, the
Yeah, so
Wisconsin
does that have to
PSC.
be redone,
No.
and how does that work?
Well, the Wisconsin PSC, Wisconsin Public Service Commission, there were state grants available, okay? These grants now are federal grants, but the Wisconsin Public Service Commission is handling the whole process, okay? So, oh, I'm sorry, I'm just talking, can you hear me anyway? Okay, sorry. So do I need to repeat anything? So the federal grants, you know, are, the requirements by the federal government are much different than the state grants that were out there, okay? So I hate to use the word difficult, but one of the things why I'm kind of made the joke, we're starting tomorrow. You know, there is a webinar tomorrow on grant writing. AT&T will be assisting us in grant writing, but they do not do the grant writing. Okay, so we are going to have to verse ourselves in doing that. And I'm very hopeful. There's a webinar tomorrow. There's a webinar on the 14th. And, yeah, just before my committee meeting. So there's a lot of things we're gonna learn about doing the grant application, hopefully properly and well, so that we will get some money back. And the first one will be attacking, which ACE, I always get the letters, AFP? ACP, so thank you. That's in that federal grant, that's open now, and it closes in November. So that's why we gotta have our act together and really get on it. And then we'll be finding out more about the BEAD program, which, again, letters. But that one will take place and start the process in '24, maybe somewhere in '24. It's very, you know, we have information, but as Jess would tell you, it's trickling out slowly. So that's a whole nother pot of money. You know, that's the one that, you know, Wisconsin is slated for 1.1 billion, over $1 billion, 55, yeah. But it's a big state, and there's a lot of need. So, you know, but again, we're gonna do the best we can to go after whatever dollars we can. So that's, that's where we're going.
Let me add some comfort that, Laddie, could you put that website up? So when you look at grants, so we get roughly, let's just round that off to $2 million that we're on the hook for, if you will, as a town. And this chart, right, that I'm looking at, this is a Public Service Commission chart. The link to get to this chart on the Wisconsin Public Service Commission is actually on the presentation, which I know our Madam Clerk will make available on the website. But the Communications Project Fund grant, which is $42 million, which Jeannie just talked about, which is available now, from the U.S. Department of Treasury, administered by the Wisconsin Public Service Commission. They've sent us a chart here that shows red dots and purple dots. And on the purple dots, you can see, really nothing on Bay Shore. They're all purple on Bay Shore Drive, Glidden Drive, Bark Road. That's really what they are calling ineligible. So those are incumbent, largely charter customers that kind of that don't meet the criteria to get access to broadband. The red dots, which are prevalent throughout most of the town, are eligible, and that is the Wisconsin Public Service Commission using their criteria. So let's assume, so we've got $2 million, and let's assume that 50% of the dots are eligible. In other words, 50% red, 50% purple, just to make things simple. So that means if we want to go after grants, because the money is tight, and either you have less than 100 by... For this one, it's 100 by 100. 100 by 100. You have less than 100 by 100 speed. So basically, if you have Door County Broadband, any satellite service, and actually anything low Earth orbit, Starlink doesn't qualify. If you don't have that sort of speed, you're typically eligible, okay? So if you go back to the chart, let's assume 50% of all those dots, are eligible. So that says if we want to get money, if they were really in a donating mood, we could say, okay, we've got half of our dots are red. So take our $2 million, cut it in half, and give us $1 million. Well, it's not going to work that way because we know there's going to be a lot of people competing for the grants. And so looking at the previous grant round that the state did, those that got grants, if you look at Town of Jackseport, for example, Town of Jackseport said, hey, we'll go in 50% on this. Can you do a 50% match? So we think, depending on how competitive it is, we might be able to say, okay, we might get $500,000, just using that as an illustrative example. Or we might say, okay, we'll donate 52%. Can you give us 48, just to kind of up the ante a little bit more to say we're going to put more of our ore in the water, so to speak. So anyway to get that dollar value down, since we know those grants will be helpful. Now, if we don't get into that grant round, there's, as Jeannie noted, there's the BEAD funding where the state's got a little over $1.1 billion. But that same process is going to happen here. The good news is for our town, and actually for all of Door County. Door County is the poster child for the state of Wisconsin Public Service Commission on how to do this broadband work right. And a lot of that credit goes to Jessica here in the front. Matter of fact, just on the Wiser survey that we ask everyone to give their broadband speeds or whatever, they have a special website link that shows our speeds, and our county is the only one that shows its speeds because we're the only ones that have provided feedback and have responded to the survey to the extent that the data, is worthwhile. So where that helps us is when we go to our grant, we have all this data from the town of Sevastopol residents that completed the survey. So it helps us make a better argument saying, hey, look at even for these that you say are eligible or that are not eligible, we're finding out that the incumbents, on both shores, their broadband speeds aren't the 300/10 megabits per second that you're paying for. It's a lot less. And so we can make those arguments because the survey data we have is actually hosted by the Wisconsin Public Service Commission. It's on their database. So it helps us give great arguments. As they say, data talks and BS walks. Well, we've got the data. And so that'll help us be very persuasive in our grant arguments. So I think we're very bullish. We'll get some grant money. But I just want to make sure I set the expectations. It's not like we're going to get an 80% match, just because it's going to be competitive throughout the state. And, the big thing in BEAD is equity, right? So there are some states or some counties in Wisconsin that are clearly not in the leadership condition that we are in Door County, with the way the municipalities have really done a great job. But the state may still have to give some of those counties money just because they don't have anything, right? So they from the government looking at them saying, what are you doing to increase equity throughout the state? Even though we've got, an A for execution and an A for effort, that only gets us so far. There are a lot of counties that are in worse shape than we are from an access perspective, and the state is going to be compelled to spread that $1.1 billion around, no matter how great of a job that we did. So I just want to make sure I just kind of temper expectations that way. I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, Jeff.
Jeff Firestein, 2500 Canal. Hey, so question, you're gonna go ahead without getting any kind of grants, you're gonna set up your finance, you're gonna set up your loans, get the money coming in. So if the grant money comes in, then the net effect would be Sevastopol paying off the loan earlier, is that correct? Or how does it get used?
We would say that would probably be the way we would go. We haven't gone into the discussion. I think we want to sit down with AT&T and look at what areas we're going to hit first. Okay, so there'll be a plan, and then, and then there's probably, I know there'll be a way.
I think where he's going is
Yeah.
the place that we would borrow the money from, which is the same place we borrow the money for this building, the Board of Commissioners, there's no prepayment penalty.
Right.
So if we were to get grants, we could go back in and juggle that loan.
Yeah.
Or as happened in, I think, year 7 or 8 of the 10-year loan for this building, we were approached by a bonding agent, and they took over that entire loan at a reduced rate even then. So there's opportunities there because you're not locked in. The only thing we're locked into is the initial rate, and the term can't exceed 20% or 20 years.
Okay.
But we are investigating through the county, and Hugh and Jessica are investigating some options that might be able to extend that by using county bonding money. That's work in progress, but we're going to do the best we can. We're going to take the money. We're going to get AT&T rolling, which is really key. And I think with their infrastructure up here, we're going to get some people up and running sooner than we would with any of our other selections.
I think, Jeff, to build on Dan and Jeannie's points, if you look at those dots, one of the things that we could do with AT&T is to talk to them and say, you know what? We're only going to be able to get grants for the red dots. So let's define 2 specific projects. Let's do a purple project and let's do a red project, right? And so by doing that, it makes sure we're not disqualified from getting grants, while at the same time on the purple stuff, we can go and execute anyway. And so it helps us do that. The other part with AT&T compared to some of the other providers that Jeannie had on the slide there is that they're an ILEC. They're an independent local exchange carrier, which means they're a legacy, copper Ma Bell, GTE phone. So they have, in a sense, special privileges for gaining access to power poles and other utility poles. Matter of fact, they don't even have to ask permission to just string wire on power lines. They have to make sure it meets design requirements, but they can go ahead and start implementing, which is why they say, once our contract is signed, we can start, okay? That's the unfortunate challenge that Bailey's Harbor has. They're working with Insight, who's not an ILEC. So they have to go to Wisconsin Public Service and say, we want to string fiber on your power lines in the town of Bailey's Harbor. And WPS has not yet returned to them what the engineering requirements are to do that. And that's been pending for over a year and a half. Okay, and then once they have that engineering requirements, then they know what their true cost is above and beyond what Insight is going to deliver, right? So they're stuck. If you're an ILEC, that's why Frontier can work very quickly in the town of Jacksonport, because they're an ILEC. They have existing telephone infrastructure, telephone poles. They have some fiber that's served, their wire line. So they have a lot of infrastructure, and AT&T is the same way. And even if AT&T doesn't, because they're an ILEC, they can string along WPS poles or Sturgeon Bay utility poles and just, say, hey, we're going to be doing this, guys. We'll make sure it meets your requirements, and off they go. So I think that's the part that we're excited about, relative to maybe breaking the project up, protect what we want to do to get grants in the near term, but for the rest of the town, which is in the purple areas, et cetera, as soon as we get a contract signed, we can get going. So that would be the hope.
Good, Gwen.
When Gray Boys 5343 South Lake Road, if these are being strung from the telephone poles, does that mean every time we lose electricity at the house, internet will be down?
No.
No.
No, because it's the XGS, it's XGS-PON technology, and P means passive. So you basically, when you lose power, you'll still have the light that gets to your house. Obviously, your router and your house has to have power if you lose power. Your internet's not going to work if you don't have your router inside your house powered up or on a battery backup. But the network itself will be active.
So the aerial versus buried that AT&T had in their information to us was about 48% buried and 52% aerial, roughly.
Yeah, and that may actually increase.
Yeah.
One of the things that, for folks that live on Glidden Drive, Sturgeon Bay Utilities has been burying their power lines, and along with that, they're burying their communications lines. It's going to provide resiliency, reliability, and AT&T and Charter, along with the power on that south end of the drive, is going to be underground.
And Sturgeon Bay Utilities
Sturgeon Bay Utilities.
WPS will be doing it in other areas.
Sturgeon Bay Utilities is planning, according to them, to do something similar on Bayshore Drive from the city limits up to Dunn Road, where their coverage ends along Bayshore Drive. They haven't committed to a time frame on that, and that's actually one of the things we'll talk to them and AT&T about, because if they're going to be doing burying along Bayshore Drive, again, to increase reliability for power, that's going to be a shared cost. And so that's going to, in the end, save us money relative to what AT&T is going to probably end up bearing. So that's one that when we say looking for cost-saving opportunities, that's another one that we're going to be looking for and exploring, and that may affect the timeline as well, because we don't want to have them do the work twice or inconvenience the residents more than we have to with this.
Yeah.
I'm Jim Mitchie, 4159 Bayshore Drive. First, I want to thank the committee and the board for all the very hard work and fortitude to push through on this. I know you've been working for a long time on this. And it seems to be a successful result. I refer to a Wall Street Journal article from 2 days ago that, if I'm understanding what the article says, the U.S. Department of Agriculture is averaging about $9,000 per hookup location. The Treasury Department and FCC are averaging about $1,750 to $3,300 per connection location. So with the 2,000 odd housing units in Sevastopol, it looks like we're right in the lower end of that range.
It's a little over $1,000 per location using the FCC number of 2027 for us. So yeah, very, very competitive, and that's without, and again, that's without, Jim, grants. So really, that's our cost to the town of a little over $1,000 per socket. So
Here's my statement. My question is, I find the 70% contribution by AT&T, although common, to be very generous, and too good to be true, sort of generous. We've heard those words before. Is that dependent on them receiving grants or particular interest rates?
No.
Or et cetera, or is that totally on?
No.
No, through the magic of ChatGPT and Google Bard, I searched to see what AT&T was getting in other communities across the country, so we benchmarked that. And we used that to help Jeannie negotiate. And actually, the 70-30 split is not the best rates. There are some communities in Indiana that got 82% from AT&T. Some got 74, and so this isn't just the goodness, the hardworking people of Indiana. We got benchmarks from Kansas, Louisiana, South Carolina, Amarillo, Texas. So we benchmarked that, and because we thought the 70-30 that town of Egg Harbor had once they had their town meeting last week, we thought, holy smokes, that's a pretty good. That's a pretty we've heard this before, too good to be true, right? So we benchmarked. We went and looked out on the network and found that actually our rate, that 70% wasn't the best. It was kind of middling, if you will. But those are contracts and agreements that are executed, throughout the country that are in process. Some of them, including Vanderburgh County, which is where we stole shamelessly the template for the broadband RFP that we've used in many of our municipalities, is their biggest implementation, I think, in Indiana, and that was like a 70-30 split. So we used their national contribution rates as a way to say, can we be part of that benchmark, similarly in our state.
That wasn't how it came out originally, but
Yeah.
Thank you.
we were able to get them to do better. I still have a little bit of that, apparently. Yeah, Tom.
So earlier you said that it's like 50-50 buried versus poles, and you said that could go up. Which could go up? The pole part or the buried part?
The berry part. The berry part might go
Because
up
of what's happening
with Sturgeon Bay Utilities. And we've also, again, through Jessica's leadership, we now know the person that does the kind of future planning for Wisconsin Electric, We Energies, which owns WPS. So we're going to be on the phone to Dan Sandy to say what's in store from a future roadmap where town of Sevastopol is served by We Energies. Is there anything that you guys are thinking of or doing buried work? And I can imagine the northern end of Bayshore Drive too, a lot of trees. We've had resiliency problems there as well with power lines, and such up there. So we're going to just see what is on their roadmap, and the fact that we can give him, a good heads up, that can help us just see if there's an opportunity there as well.
So is the expectation is that from, whether it's buried or in the pole, if it's buried at the street, it's going to be up a pole to your house, or is it going to be buried to the house? Because I think before everything was buried, and I understand things change, but how is that going to work from the right-of-way line to the house if it's buried and on a pole?
That we're going to learn once we get the detailed design from AT&T. Since they've implemented, fiber, throughout the country, they know the state well. They know what they need in order to meet the reliability requirements, right? They don't want to have guys out, trying to, deal with down trees, et cetera. So we're going to let them, as the experts, kind of give us guidance of what they recommend. But I think, we're seeing in most cases, a lot of them just from a reliability perspective, where they can and where it's cost effective, they would be inclined to bury.
Did they give you any sort of rate guarantee? In other words, they won't raise the rates for some period of time?
No, because they're a national company, and they just, these are our rates right now, and there's no. And if, just recently, if you're a charter customer, they went from $79.99 to $84.99 just last month. And, now they're enacting auto pay to get it back to the $79.99. But, this is straightforward 60 for the 300, and then with the auto pay 55. And how long that will be, we don't know. Yeah. We definitely tried. Anyone else? Oh, you're good, Hugh.
No.
Oh, you answered so many questions. And really, we all owe Jess Hatch a tremendous amount of credit for all her work, because she is emailing information.
Laddie, put the camera on her.
Yeah, yeah.
Come on.
There she is, I mean, lots of emails every week, with lots of information. She attends seminars, webinars, you know, this woman has worked incredibly. And if you think about the fact that she's had to do that for all the municipalities in Door County, it's a yeoman's job. She does.
And not all the county supervisors are as optimistic about doing broadband as Supervisor Vogel and myself. So, you know, she's got to face some headwinds every once in a while. So we're appreciative of all the great work that she's done, the credibility that she's engendered, and the collaboration amongst all the towns. You got Jeff Firestein here, who's the town chairman of the town of Sturgeon Bay. They didn't start this process until October of last year, when I tried to twist some arms, since I represent part of the town of Sturgeon Bay, to get their town to stand up a committee and get going on that. And they, as I, you know, say, they stole shamelessly. They borrowed the RFP, they borrowed pro formas, they were able to talk to the stakeholders from, you know, Claybanks, Nassau-Waupee, Jacksonport, Town of Egg Harbor, you know, everyone that's going through this process, learning from them, educating their townspeople and their electors. So I think one of our secret sauces that we have in the county is with Jess leading the charge. We have a very collaborative effort amongst all the communities to make broadband happen within a county. So I think with her here, she doesn't get enough credit for that. So if you could just give her a nice gentle round of applause.
So, and I focus on the word collaboration, because almost from the get-go, I mean, with Jess on board, it was so great when she started, and you didn't feel like you were out there. You know, the initial feeling is like you're out in the middle of the ocean in a tiny little boat, right? So to have her on board and be able to start sharing information, and then when committees got started and I started speaking to other chairs of broadband committees, and, you know, we shared our aggravations, our challenges, our, you know, our successes, you know, so many things. And, you know, I think that openness, and, you know, when he jokingly says, you stole the RFP, well, if you will, we kind of stole it first. So.
And AT&T answered their own RFP back
Yeah.
to you.
The
beauty of it.
Yeah, that is the beauty of it. So, not that I didn't point that out, no. So, yeah, so the whole thing of the spirit of cooperation and collaboration is alive and well, and I'm so pleased, because we need each other, you know, and we need to make that point over and over again, not just in this community, but in every community across the nation. And if we have that spirit, we can make things happen, and good things. Yeah, Jim?
Jeannie, I know that the video is going to be on the town website.
Yeah.
Can your presentation please be posted on the website also?
Is it posted? Yes, sure.
It has not been yet.
It
It
will
will
be.
by tomorrow morning.
Yeah, so.
Mhm.
Oh, and were there any questions on chat? I'm sorry, I didn't ask.
No, but.
Okay.
You're in front of the camera.
You're in front of the camera, Dan.
I'm in front of the camera, that's because I look good.
Your backside?
Are you done?
Yes, I am done. Again,
My bad side.
thank you all for coming, and Dan's gonna take it from here, so.
That's all right. Thanks, Jeannie, and to you. We do appreciate your coming. I'm sure that some of you are going to have second thoughts on something or another thought. If you do, feel free to call the town clerk, myself, Hugh, Jeannie, or if you want, as a focal point, give them to the clerk. We'll get answers back to you. The presentation will be out there, so if you find something other than a typo, you know, let us know. We've corrected dozens of typos. But we appreciate your coming out. I'm personally a Charter customer. I can't wait for AT&T to string anything anywhere near me. $85 a month, and I can't watch Monday Night Football, and I can't watch Little Mermaids because the Disney can't? Come on. So anyway, thanks again very much. Questions, let us know. Appreciate it. Good night.
Good night.